What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked In Sports Podcast. We're still in the Central Division today. We're going to be talking some Minnesota Twins. We brought on, of course, our local Minnesotan. I don't know exactly what the phrasing
Minnesotan,
is.
yeah.
Minnesotan. We got Mr. Joe Sieben on. Joe, how you doing?
Dude, not too bad. Excited. Is this the last team in the Central Block? Is this the last one?
We got the Cubs, and I think
okay.
that might be
the Cubs. But last AL team for the Central Block. I'm excited to talk about the Twins, man. They got a good club, I think, this year.
All right, I love the optimism. We got Luis here, of course. We were just almost went to. We're in remote locations, but we almost got into an altercation here over Xavier Butler basketball. But before the pod,
what can I say? It's March. You know, the cherries or blossoms are coming out in DC. The birds are chirping. The skies are clear. The sun is out. And it's a great time to talk baseball. So
when's opening day? That's got to be like 2 weeks out, right?
Yeah, we got the Tokyo series, Cubs Dodgers, March 18th and 19th.
Wow.
And then actual opening day, domestic opening day is the 27th. So
yeah,
we're recording this on March 9th. We got about days. 2.5 weeks until opening day. I'm ready for it to get going here.
Hey. I might be boots on the ground for March for the Skeens Alcantara battle.
Honestly,
might be the best game all year for the Marlins.
And then it's Florida concert after the game too. Florida and Luis Fonsi. They got Dan Marino throwing opening pitch. It's opening day.
Because we know no one would go to a Marlins game unless they had some form of entertainment. And I love how we always talk about the Marlins. Luis always finds a way to work them in. Luis, what is that?
It's Club 305.
It's a lanyard I got, Club 305.
Out from the Marlins game.
From the Marlins booth when I was at the Arts Festival the other week, from the infamous Arts Festival story.
Indeed.
But all right, but we're Twins baseball today. How much are you looking forward to it, William and Joe? I mean, lots to talk about with these Minnesotan Twins.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to catch up on their offseason news. There's a lot of folks leaving and not a lot of folks coming in. They're rolling with who they had, for better or for worse. I mean, you look at last year, we were leading the Central, I think, like the majority of the season, and they just really had a tough end of the year, just kept losing. Guys were getting hurt. Guys were supposed to be coming back. They kept losing games, and they kind of blew to the division. And then, Royals and Tigers were hot late. Guardians are always solid, and all three of them sneak into the playoffs. Tigers have a sweet run there for a couple of weeks. And I think you guys have said in the other pods, but it really is just a mixed bag. These four teams, like, Twins could take first, I think, and win this division and have a great season. Correa and Buxton are healthy, or they get hurt, our young guys don't pan out, and they could sell guys and we could take fourth in the division.
Yeah, I would agree. Luis, you want to walk through the starting rotation, starting lineups and everything?
Yeah. So with this team, like Joe said, not many. This team's been plagued with a lot of ownership issues, mostly due to the RSN, which I know William will probably touch more deeper in what it means and how RSN is affecting the game. But this team, pretty much same team as last year, right? They're gonna have Matt Wallner, shortstop Carlos Correa, which interesting topic there. Byron Buxton at center, Trevor Larnach at left, Royce Lewis at third, Ryan Jeffers at center. DHing is Willie Castro, Ty France at first, and Brooks Lee at second base. On the bench, you got they got a formidable bench, and Christian Vasquez, Jose Miranda, Edouard Julien, and Harrison Bader, who they signed in free agency from the Mets. And Ty France, they signed him from Cincinnati. See if he can rebound after a very, very awful 2024. And starting, they got Pablo López, who they acquired from the Marlins in the Luis Arraez trade back in January 23, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Simeon Woods-Richardson, and Chris Paddock at their fifth starter. The pen, probably one of the deeper pens in the game, in my opinion, with good quality arms. They have Joan Duran, and if you guys haven't seen his intro, make sure y'all go look it up. One of the best electric closer intros of baseball. There was absolute gas. Griffin Jacks, another really good player for them in the pen. And they have Brock Stewart and Jorge Alcala and Cody Funderburk. And they got guys like Michael Token and Justin Topa that are both currently sidelined with injury that will play a part in this rotation. So now that I've introduced you to the 2025 iteration of the Minnesota Twins, I want to just take note of some of their losses, guys that are not back on the team. Carlos Santana, Max Kepler, Kyle Farmer, Josh Stalmont, Caleb Theobar, Diego Castillo, and Manuel Margot. And they also use Anthony Disclafani. So, Joe, with the roster in front of us, how are we feeling this year? I know, like you said, there's not much. I don't want to say that there's not much to talk about, but just talk about what the expectations are. I mean, I know William's going to go into the prospects a little later, but how are we feeling in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, the ownership change, I think folks want new owners at this point. They want the pull-heads to sell. I don't really know what's going to happen with that, when that's going to go down, what the deal with the RSN is, what the broadcast rights are going to be. But they do want new ownership. They want somebody who's going to spend a little bit more than they already do. Because there's a chance in this division to be competitive, to win this division and go get guys. And they just didn't do much this offseason. Obviously, they brought in Bader. It was like one of the only guys they signed. So you kind of every year at some point Buxton gets hurt. So I like them bringing in Bader so that he's a defensive replacement and can go play center. So I don't mind that signing. They let Kepler walk. He'd always been in trade talks. It felt like it's going to be Larnach and Matt Wallner in left and right. So you're going to need some home runs and those guys to be solid and probably both take a little bit of a step forward as well for the outfield to be good. I love the infield. Outside of first base, you're going with Ty France, who we really wanted 2 years ago at the deadline. He's had a steady decline, I think, since then. So you're hoping for a bargain deal on him at first base. If he goes south, that could be trouble at first base with letting Carlos Santana leave. But love Correa if he can stay healthy. Royce Lewis, I'm expecting a big year from. I think you need him to take a superstar leap and be that guy. And then Eddie Julien and Brooks Lee at second, I think is a great tandem there. Ryan Jeffers behind the dish. I think just all around solid guys. You need guys that play to their name, play to their potential. I think you need a jump from Brooks Lee. And then the rotation, I was looking at the rotation before we jumped on. I mean, if Pablo can be your ace, you got Joe Ryan. You want SWR to be he's going to need to make a jump to the third guy. Paddock was floating in trade rumors, so I'm not really sure what's going to go on with him. So it's kind of a team that I think is going to be solid, and you need superstars to play like superstars in order to win this division.
Yeah, I find this roster really interesting, and you kind of hit a key point, I think, a little bit earlier of how they faltered down the stretch last year. They were in control of that division for probably 4 months or so. You know, they're playing just slightly above 500 baseball. They weren't world beaters, but you don't have to be world beaters to win the American League Central. Mm-hmm. And in September, they were 9-18. So we talk about, the Tigers' incredible run down the stretch, but, with that, I think it's important to note that the Twins also played into their hands and they could not win ball games when it mattered the most. So like you said, they're going to need guys to be healthy. That's kind of the biggest story with the on the field roster, I think, this year. Carlos Correa was an all-star in the first half last season. I think he only ended up playing 86 games or something last year. X factor, if he's healthy, he's one of the best shortstops in the game. He's somehow only 30, going to turn 31 this season. Feels older than that. Feels like he's been around. There's certainly injury concerns there. Byron Buxton, he's going to get you probably at max, 120 games. He's going to get hurt at some point. It's kind of just the way that his career has gone, unfortunately. So you bring in Bader, like you said, some outfield depth protection for when Buxton inevitably gets injured. I think you can kind of just factor that in to the roster at this point. Royce Lewis, you're going to need a bounce back season from him. In 2023, looked like he was going to be, a superstar, had that trajectory. Step back last year. Can he bounce back? I really like some of the youth that they have, in this organization. Edward Julian seems to be in the mix for the second base job right now. Fangraphs has it as Brooks Lee. We'll see. You also have guys like Walter Jenkins in the farm system, Emmanuel Rodriguez, the outfielder that there's a lot of hype around. So I think there is some talent. Maybe that's not projected to make the opening day roster that could be there for this organization. And most importantly, when it comes to the starting rotation, you're going to need Pablo López to have a bounce back season. I think their rotation goes as he goes. It's not a crazy thing to say he's their best pitcher. He wasn't great last year. He's got to get back to his all-star level form. Joe Ryan was solid. And Bailey Ober, there's going to be mid-3 ERA guys. There's talent like that. You could argue they have the most aggregate talent amongst any team in this division this year. It's just a matter of staying healthy, some of those young guys producing, having bounce back seasons, and doing it over the course of 162 games and not faltering down the stretch. Because as long as they played probably 500 baseball last year, they're in the playoffs and they're winning the division. So
you forgot one of the most important guys you haven't listed.
Who's that?
Kalen Culpepper, local product, one of Williams guys.
Local product.
Well, local product. That's what it is. But for me, it's kind of like I remember last year when Royce Lewis started out the year, he was looking like he was going to be in the mix to do some big stuff. Like he was hitting the bat off the ball. He was just electric, but he could just not stay healthy. And I kind of feel like he could have an analogous career to Mr. Byron Buxton, where it's just like, I can't remember the statistic, but I know Joe could probably back me up with this. Whenever Byron Buxton played, the Twins, odds went up so high to win the game.
I mean, he's an electric player. I mean, in outfield, on the base paths, when he could hit, he's not really hitting for power a ton, but you get the guy in the base paths and he's an electric guy out there. He just gives you a chance to win.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with Royce Lewis. That's the thing I believe. But my thing is there's so many holes on this team that it's just okay, you let Carlos Santana walk. You replace him with Ty France, who had a career bad year. But then you have guys in the outfield that I'm not really a fan of. I love Harrison Bader, but he can't hit the ball. He hit 236 last year. The Yankees let him walk and the Mets let him walk. That's a big thing. And that's always kind of been the deal with him, that he can electric on the base pass, but great defense, but can't hit. And then you got other guys like Matt Wallner hit 259, Trevor Larnach 259 also. How are they going to be able to create offense on this team? Will Willie Castro be able to repeat his incredible form last year? Are they still going to Are they still going to be able to afford all these guys? Or are they going to have to just nuke it at some point? That's a big question we have to look at ourselves and ask, hey, if this team goes south really quickly, will they be able to keep it all together? I just feel there's so many holes that aren't filled.
You have, and I'll let Joe go in a sec, but you have the key issue of the RSN deal where MLB has taken over their broadcasting rights for the season, so they don't have a deal with a Bally Sports or whatever regional sports network. I think it's FanDuel Sports Network that took over for Bally because Bally went bankrupt. They have that question mark, and you have the ownership that is looking to sell. The Ishbia, Justin Ishbia, was rumored to want to buy the Twins this offseason, but he ended up increasing his stake in the White Sox. So, that's no longer an option. And, I guess the poll ads are going to have to continue looking for someone else. So that's kind of part of the reason. I mean, that is the reason they didn't do anything of note this offseason, which is unfortunate because they have so much talent on this roster. You're paying Correa $33 million AAV for the next 5 seasons. And then there's a bunch of vesting options at the end of his contract too. Where Luis brings up the question, if things go south and Correa is having a good season, he's locked up for a lot of more years, and maybe that contract isn't super enticing for some teams. The Yankees won't pay for that contract, for example. But with the young crop that they have coming up, I think there is a world in which if this season goes really south, they don't see the future with this core of a Buxton, Correa. They've kind of given it its run. They could trade those guys and still have Walter Jenkins, who I would argue is the best prospect in all of baseball right now. So there's still reason to be optimistic about the Twins long-term, even if, there's a lot of question marks right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, Walker Jenkins and Erod in the minors, I think it's part of the reason, ownership and, letting Kepler walk, letting all our guys walk. They think these guys might be up this season. They're going to leave the path and the door open for them to come up. But the ownership is there's a worst case scenario where things go south and we don't have a new owner and nobody wants to spend and they start offloading guys.
Yeah, my thing is can these dudes even stay healthy? A lot of these guys, pitching, I don't want to touch too much on pitching around the league, but like pitching in general, just arms just get hurt all the time. And like you have guys like Buxton, Correa that are just prone to injury, and also Royce Lewis, where it's just like, okay, you're just 1 or 2 injuries away, and you're right there down there with the White Sox.
Whoa.
I don't know if we're going that low.
No, that in the sense of I don't say like talent wise, like with the White Sox.
The White Sox are running a AAA team.
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay, say both Buxton and Royce Lewis get hurt.
Well, yeah, then
you're a bottom 5, bottom 8 team in the majors
for sure.
I mean, we do not have depth right now. If Ty France doesn't perform, we're in trouble. Like Ty France has got to be solid.
Well, and that's the biggest question. You're expecting guys like him to rebound.
Yeah, they're putting a lot on every guy that's starting needs to perform. Like they're putting the guys on the 26, 27 man roster. You got to be good. Like you just have to perform.
It's either that or they're young players that are unproven at the MLB level that
are going to come up. Yeah,
that they're going to come up. That the season's not a sprint; it's a marathon. It's ebbs and flows. Like you're going to have months where you're hitting the cover off the baseball, and there's going to be other months where you just don't hit enough.
Which,
to
that point, Minnesota, brutal place to play in April and May. It's just freezing, and the bats are going to be cold.
And the funny thing is, you bring up ownership. Like the only big thing about Minnesota is yes, it's a small market, but the problem is like they already have a lot of really good infrastructure comparative to in Oakland, where like if you were to put Oakland and Minnesota, like if they were both put on the market to sell, yes, Oakland isn't great because of the market and you don't have a stadium. Minnesota, it's the market, but you have a stadium already built. So
if you look at this division, we'll keep coming back to it. None of these teams are going to be the team like for this foreseeable future. Like if you're looking to buy the Twins, it's like, hey, every year we could have a shot to win this division and get into the playoffs.
All you have to do is spend a little bit of money and you're already outspending the rest of the division. Like it just takes both central divisions. All it takes is one new owner that is actually willing to spend money a little bit more than they are right now. And they will probably have a good chance to run that division. Like Twins,
Cubs,
credit to the Twins. They went out and they spent the money on Carlos Correa. I might not love the deal, but they went out and gave him a bunch of money. Yeah. The Cubs are in by far the biggest market in the central divisions, and they refuse to spend money. They kind of act like they're Milwaukee or something. Twins actually went out and gave Correa that deal. So, the Royals, to their credit, they extended Bobby Witt, which I think that might be something that makes fans of other central teams a little bit nervous, is the fact that Bobby Witt is going to be in that division for the foreseeable future in Kansas City. He's going to be the best player in the division year after year for the next 15 years or whatever.
And that's my thing. It's just like, if you're looking at it, and we talked about this in the Guardians podcast, if you're looking at all the teams, like the only guy you're really competing with for the next 10 years is the Bobby Witt Royals, essentially. But other than that, there's no like infrastructure. I just feel like, for example, the White Sox, for as much flack as we give them comparative to the Twins, like the White Sox and Twins have the two like best farms in terms of high-end talent.
And the Tigers, have Tarek Skubal, but I think there's some question marks around their bats being there for the foreseeable future. So, again, like I said on previous podcasts, you could put these 4 teams in a blender, and I wouldn't be surprised with how they come out. So, wouldn't be shocked if the Twins win the division. Wouldn't be shocked if they finish 4th.
And also, pitchers get hurt all the time. So, and I kind of feel like out of all the central teams, I feel like, yes, they have question marks, but I feel like there's a little more talent bats-wise with the Twins and other central teams. Like, we can play the game. You want to play the game again?
All right. Yeah, we can do it.
All right. Guardians or Twins batting order for both of y'all. Which one are you taking?
I mean, I think that's kind of a toss-up, but I'm going to take the Twins upside with Correa, Buxton, and Royce Lewis.
Yeah, I'm going Twins over Guardians. I think the Guardians, I would put them 3rd or 4th amongst those central teams outside the White Sox.
And that's the thing. I have a toss-up because I can see a world where Carlos Correa does well, and then I don't see a world where he doesn't do well. And I see a world where Royce Lewis gets up to that J-Ram level. I just feel like the Guardians is like that good floor, but the upside.
They have a good floor, yeah. And the Twins is volatile. Like
Mm-hmm.
Royce Lewis could legit be like, this guy's got the potential of J-Ram, and he could also get hurt, and we're kind of screwed.
And yeah, and that's the way I see the same thing. I mean, Royce Lewis is insane. I mean, when you think about the draft class he came out of that 2017 draft class, which, you know, at the time that draft pick was under scrutiny because of who was considered. But I mean, looking at the guys that came out that year, like it's really hard to like screw it up. It was Royce Lewis and Hunter Green at the top.
He was R1P1, Royce Lewis.
Yeah, and Hunter Green was supposed to be R1P1.
All right, yeah, let's do Twins versus Tigers lineup. I'm going Twins again, I think.
Oh,
yep.
Again, I kind of feel there's more floor with the Tigers, but the Twins are just, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of their outfield and first base. I'm going to take the Tigers.
Okay. And then Twins versus Royals. I would lean, like the back half of that Royals lineup is pretty rough, but Vinny and Bobby, I think I would edge Royals over Twins slightly.
Yeah, I might even say Bobby Witt is just, I mean, he's got best player in the entire league levels right now. So, I mean, he's a surefire. He electrifies that entire lineup.
Mm-hmm. It's just the thing is when you're looking at these central teams, and especially with the Twins, it's looking like what's your flavor? Like,
yeah, 100%. It's like, what do you like upside wise? You know,
what do you like? Do you like chocolate milk, or you just like regular milk? Do you like whole milk? Do you like 2% milk? Do you like vanilla ice cream? You like ice cream with sprinkles on it? Like that's what we're looking at these teams here. Like that's what it's like. And with the Twins, I mean, look, I feel like the biggest thing this year is that you have to look forward to just getting that youth of like Brooks Lee, who I'm personally a fan of. Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis. You just got to get healthy years and just build on that. And I mean, y'all's pitching lab does a great job. I mean, Joe Ryan, Pablo López, Bailey Ober, all are great. And then they'll have an elite bullpen pieces.
Yeah, I mean, if they can score runs and have solid starting pitching, this bullpen's elite down the stretch. So that's why I like them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Luis, what's the number?
So DraftKings, not sponsored, maybe a sponsorship in the future. Please bet responsibly. 84.5. They went 82 and 80 last season. That was with the big boys in the lineup. Me and William said best case scenario is that they win the division. Yep. But again, it's a very like volatile division where anything can happen. And the worst case is that they're in fourth above the White Sox.
Yep.
And so what's your read, Joe, on the floor and ceiling on this team? Do you agree?
Agreed. They could win this division and they could fall to fourth place, 100%.
And like with every central block team, I think William would agree that with every central block team, with the right matchup, you can get to the CS.
Yeah, you get the right spot. Your guys playing well, I think for sure.
If you end up like this year in a scenario where like the Guardians where they had the Tigers, like, oh, you're right there.
Mm-hmm. You could have the Yankees and with everything going on with them, you could beat them.
God. Yeah.
If they even make the playoffs. All right, 84.5. I'm going to go under. I already picked the Tigers to win this division, so if the Twins were to win 85, 86 games, they'd probably be in the playoffs. But I just don't think they'll get there. Too many questions about health, and they didn't do anything this offseason to get better. I hope for your sake, Joe, they figure out the RSN thing and get some new ownership and maybe get some better structure in place, because right now it just feels like they're kind of caught between
limbo. They're just in limbo.
They're in limbo. They're caught between two minds. So I'll go on the safe side and just take the under here.
I'm also on the under as well. I just think, again, the AL is just – I don't know. With all the news coming out, I don't know what the hell is going to happen with the AL right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I'm going to be a homer and say, hey, they went 82 and 80, disappointing end of the season. They can get to 85 plus, and I think we're going to sneak into the playoffs.
I love the optimism.
I love the optimism. Hey, Minnesotans, man, with Ant Edwards, we can talk about that. What do you think about the Timberwolves now that we're kind of wrapped up with baseball?
We'll go as far as Ant can take us.
Do you miss Cap?
They were gonna have issues cap wise with everything, so it was writing was on the wall. He was gonna have to go. I do miss him. The Knicks are. I'm kind of rooting for the Knicks, dude. I I think they got a nasty squad. But T-Wolves, the West is just so deep. It's going to be pick your poison in any of those matchups. It's going to be tough all the way around in the playoffs.
How you feeling about the Vikings, though, too, that they're looking at Mr. Aaron Rodgers coming in and starting over JJ?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for Darnold to either come back or go somewhere else. I just want him to sign somewhere and just let us be like, hey, is it, Rodgers for fun, or is it roll with JJ? Like, we'll see if JJ is healthy. But JJ's the future. I mean, his ceiling, dude, is who knows what his ceiling is.
Y'all should go draft Donovan Edwards so y'all can hand him off the ball. And just watch that.
Value pick.
I will say, I don't think any athlete has ever lost as much money as Sam Darnold did over the last week of the season.
Dude, it
was 2 weeks.
It was really the stretch of a week, because there was Sunday Night Football against the Lions where he was terrible, and then they had Monday Night Football in the playoffs against the Cardinals, and he was again really bad. And if he had just played decent in those games, he'd probably be making, I don't know, a lot more money that he's going to end up getting. Doesn't really seem like there's a ton of interest around him.
Weird market. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors, but I'm like, who's offering him a massive deal right now?
Well, the thing
people
is,
people are saying the Seahawks, but I'm like, why would you trade Geno and then go sign Darnold for more?
Just as a bridge quarterback, because the thing is you look at you play musical chairs. Jets aren't going through that boat again. The Giants aren't gonna do. The Giants are pretty much, they're operating they're trying to save their jobs for next season. That's why they're doing all this Rodgers talk. That's two. The Raiders just got Gina, so then you're just down to Seattle, and you give them a $40 million deal in Seattle for a year or two. You bring a guy in like Jackson Dart, late first round. You get him to process and learn back there. You build, get some comp picks back for him later on in the future, and you let it ride, and then you let Shedeur come to the Saints. I will be
insufferable. Oh, that's your master plan.
I will be so insufferable if we draft Shedeur. You guys might have to literally block my social media, because it will be a Shedeur fest. We will be going to the Super Bowl.
It's not that good of a quarterback class, especially compared to last year where it was just loaded.
What are you talking about? Cam Ward's the second coming of Vince Young. Elite NFL.
Vince Young wasn't very good.
and then it's Cam Ward is elite, and then Shedeur Sanders is going to be an MVP. So
okay, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
I disagree. I do feel bad for Sam Darnold, because he really did have such a great season.
A sick season,
and it just,
with how low his expectations were too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were one of the best teams in the league. Unfortunately, it didn't work out in the end, but
just couldn't beat Detroit or Los Angeles, dude. Those two teams were our kryptonite.
You got a lot of free agents. You got the dancer back there, Cam Bynum, a free agent. Byron
he's
free agent. I don't know if you've seen that, William, the guy on the TikToker from the Vikings, safety.
All of our after their interceptions and fumbles, they had unreal celebrations, choreographed with 5 dudes.
I did see that. Yeah.
So he's a free agent. I mean, Aaron Jones might not be back next year. So hey, y'all are going to need a running back. I've seen y'all mocked with one of the Ohio State running backs. So
what was the last Minnesota championship? Was it the Twins in the 90s?
Yeah, I mean, T-Wolves have never won. Wild have never won as the Wild. Twins haven't won since the 90s. Vikings have never won. I mean, it's the Lynx. I mean, the Lynx have 6 titles.
Yeah, they had the dynasty with Maya Moore, right?
Yeah, they were unreal. So yeah, dude, they haven't won since the Twins in the 90s. It's been tough. Oof. Nothing in my lifetime. No 4 major sport team.
Yo, so what's up with the Wild this season? How are y'all doing?
They'll make the playoffs. They're performing above expectations, but their issue is they bought out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter 3 years ago. Had super big cap hits when they're not playing for us right now. The last season of the major cap hit is this year. Kirill Kaprizov is essentially Anthony Edwards, but on the Wild. They'll go as far as he can take us. He's hurt right now, so we're probably gonna be the 6th or 7th team in the playoffs, and they'll be competitive, but they don't have the superstar power as the other teams in the conference right now. It's gonna be a battle for them to win a series or two.
The West I'm looking at the West right now because I'm looking. It's looking like a Wild West. You got the Kings are doing really well this season. Yep. You got Edmonton who's going to be there. And those are just Colorado. Colorado's always
Winnipeg is like the best team technically record-wise.
Winnipeg's the best team. Colorado's always a juggernaut. They've done a really good job after the Cup staying because for like cap in NHL, William, it's a much smaller cap and it's like NFL cap that you can't go over the cap. So like the contracts are much smaller and it makes like team building a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have about 4 lines of forwards that are viable, and you need to have at least 3 lines of defensemen viable and 2 goaltenders. So, I mean, Colorado's done a really good job, and then Dallas they got the biggest player in the trade deadline and gave him a $12 million per year. Yeah.
Is $12 million a lot for hockey?
Yeah, it's a big number. He was asking for so he was on Colorado 2 months ago. He was asking for like $14.5 million. And they have McKinnon, and McKinnon's their best player. He was asking for more than McKinnon. They offered him like 12.5, traded him to Carolina. Carolina had him for like a couple of weeks. He wouldn't sign an extension. Wow. And then he got traded again yet on Friday before the deadline to Dallas, signed for I think $12 million a year. So he got less than they had originally been offered, but I think everybody realized like he's an insane player, but he's not the same player without McKinnon.
Who is it?
Mikko Rantanen.
I feel like I've heard of him.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't think any other sport would have a dude get traded like that
twice,
2 times within the span of 3 weeks or whatever.
Crazy.
You want to know what's the crazier trade that happened? I know, Joe, you're in a...
Yeah, wasn't it the Marchand trade?
Florida, dude. The Panthers are doing it again.
I need that trade explained in like NBA terms or MLB terms because everyone was like freaking out about it, but I don't really understand.
Yeah, so this guy, Marchand's been on the team for like close to 2 decades.
Yeah, he's a legend there.
Like a legend. Think about like Brett Gardner meets Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Traded. Mm-hmm. Like the dude's like been there. He's the ultimate like instigator. Like he's a good player. Like he's like a Draymond Green, but he's been like a Boston like staple. And Boston's like arch rival in the East has always been the Leafs, and they have just beat the Leafs up left and right every playoff series. And the Leafs have this huge drought of not being able to make it in the playoffs. And so then Boston's really bad this year. And the other team that they're rivals with is Florida. And Florida's kind of like the new like empire. And Florida has just beaten up Boston the past 2 years. And so last year they beat them and they broke the whole team up. This year they're having a really bad year. And Marchand's a free agent this upcoming offseason. And they pretty much traded him to Florida for draft picks. No, not youth, just draft picks. And Boston fans are just so mad because
Boston the Bruins haven't been bad in probably like 17 years. Like they're usually buyers like every year at the deadline. And so they haven't been sellers in a long time. And they were really good the last 2 seasons, but Florida ended them in the playoffs. And this core it's crazy, but it's ending. Like they're rebuilding now, and Florida's insane. Florida's gonna be insane.
It's like if Brett Gardner meets Draymond Green, gets traded to the Astros during the Astros run.
Interesting comp.
Like that would like boil you, and that's what has Boston fans like absolutely boiled because like you sent him to to Florida, and the thing is, Florida also has 2 like Draymond Green-esque players. Yeah. That they like their top line is just going to be straight up all instigators, like just, and they call the Panthers, the nickname is they call them the Rats. So,
well, that's your hometown team. So, all right, well, we'll stay tuned for the hockey playoffs. Best of luck to the Wild. Joe, thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts on Twins, Minnesota sports, anything before we get out?
I think, dude, there's always next year. There's always hope and optimism. It's a classic Twins team. They're going to be 500. They're going to be around the playoffs. They're going to disappoint in some aspects. But I think they got a shot. I'm excited for new ownership at some point. It's a bummer there's limbo around that. But there's hope for this season. There's hope for the future. And a lot of guys with a lot of potential.
Absolutely.
You have it.
There you have it. Yep. Luis and I are under. Joe's going optimistic. Sticking with the over 84.5. Luis, who's coming up tomorrow?
We are going to Seattle. The central block is complete, and we're going to Seattle. So get ready to get throw some fish across in the market. Let's get it.
Let's get it. All right. Thank you all for listening to this Twins preview. We'll be back tomorrow, like Luis said, with the Seattle Mariners. Until then, catch you next time. Peace out.